Chosen one, there is something happening to you right now that most people will never understand. The ground beneath your life is shifting. Doors that used to open have gone quiet. Relationships that once felt like home now feel like rooms you have outgrown. And there is a heaviness in your body, in your chest, in your shoulders, in the way your sleep has changed. That tells you something your mind has not caught up to yet. You are being moved, not randomly, not as punishment, but deliberately, purposefully, by the same God who placed you where you have been, because where you have been has done its work, and it is time. This is not chaos. This is a relocation, and it follows a pattern as old as Abraham leaving his father's house, as old as Ruth walking away from Moab, as old as Joseph being pulled from everything he loved so he could stand in the place that was actually built for him. Your new home is ready, chosen one. It has been ready. And there is a gift waiting for you there, a calling, a connection, a version of your life that cannot exist at your current address. But before you can receive it, you need to understand what God is doing and why it had to happen now. Stay with me. What I am about to walk you through will change how you see every closed door, every restless night, and every silent prayer you thought went unanswered. I want you to hear something, and I want you to hear it not just with your ears, but with the part of you that has been quietly waiting for someone to say this out loud. You did not stumble onto this message. You were not browsing and accidentally landed here. Something far older and far more precise than coincidence brought you to this exact moment. A hand you cannot see has been arranging pieces you cannot track, and one of those pieces was making sure that today, right now, in this specific hour of your life, you would hear these specific words, because what I am about to share with you is not a casual encouragement. It is not a motivational speech. It is a map of the exact thing God is doing in your life right now, why the disruption has been happening, why certain doors have been closing, why certain people have been pulling away, and what is waiting for you on the other side of all of it. And I need to tell you this up front, so you understand the weight of what you are about to receive. By the end of this message, you will understand three things. First, why you had to be where you have been, and what God was building in you at that old address. Second, why the discomfort you are feeling right now is not a sign that something is wrong, but the most reliable sign that something is profoundly, irreversibly right. And third, what your new home actually looks like, what gift is waiting there, and how to recognize it when you arrive. There is a pattern hidden in every divine relocation ever recorded, and I am going to show it to you piece by piece until every disruption in your life snaps into place like a puzzle you have been staring at for years. But before I show you where you are going, I need to take you back to where you have been, because the old home holds a secret that most people never discover, and that secret will change everything. Let me paint a picture, and as I describe it, I want you to notice if something feels familiar. There is a place in your life. Maybe it is a city, maybe it is a job, maybe it is a relationship, maybe it is a community or a church or a circle of people, and for a long time it felt right. It felt like where you were supposed to be. You built something there. You invested years there. You planted yourself deep into that soil, and you grew. And for a season, the growing was real. But then something shifted. It was not dramatic at first. It was quiet. Like a slow leak in a tire you keep filling with air. You would wake up in the morning, and the energy that used to carry you through the day was thinner. Conversations that used to fill you started feeling hollow. The work that once gave you purpose started feeling like a script you were reading for someone else's play, and you tried to fix it. You rearranged the furniture. You changed your routine. You had the hard conversations. You read the books, you prayed harder, you showed up earlier, you stayed later. You did everything a faithful person does when they believe the ground they are standing on is sacred. But the ground kept shifting, and the worst part, the part that no one talks about, is that nothing was technically wrong. The job still paid, the people still smiled, the routine still functioned. On the outside, everything looked the same, but on the inside, something had permanently, quietly, irreversibly changed. You outgrew the place before the place released you. And that is one of the most disorienting experiences a human being can go through, because you cannot point to a crisis. You cannot point to a betrayal. You cannot point to a single moment where everything fell apart. All you can point to is a feeling, and the feeling says, I do not belong here anymore. If that is where you are right now, I need you to hear me clearly. That feeling is not ingratitude. It is not restlessness. It is not the enemy trying to make you abandon something good. That feeling is God beginning to detach you from a place that was never meant to hold you forever. And I know that sounds strange, because you were taught to be faithful. You were taught to bloom where you are planted. You were taught that leaving is quitting, and quitting is weakness. But there is a difference between leaving because you gave up and leaving because you graduated. The old home was a school, and you did not fail it. You completed it. Every disappointment was a lesson. Every delay was a muscle being strengthened. Every person who misunderstood you was a mirror showing you what you would no longer tolerate in the next season. And every tear you cried in that place watered something underground that you could not see. The old home was not wasted time, chosen one. It was formation. And I want to show you exactly what was being built in you while you thought nothing was happening. There are 3 things that can only be built in the soil of difficulty. 3 things that God could not give you at the new home, because they can only grow where the conditions are hard, where the light is limited, where the comfort is thin. The first is resilience without bitterness. There are people in this world who have been through hardship and came out harder, sharper, more guarded. That is survival. But that is not what was being built in you. What was being built in you is something rarer, something the world desperately needs. You were being trained to endure without closing your heart, to carry weight without losing your gentleness, to be disappointed 100 times and still show up the 101st time with your arms open. That does not happen overnight. That takes years of formation. And the old home was the only classroom where that lesson could be taught, because the old home is where you were tested not by enemies but by people you loved, by circumstances you could not control, by seasons that made no sense, no matter how hard you prayed for clarity. And you passed. You are still here. You are still open. You are still listening. That alone is proof that something extraordinary was planted in you at that old address. The second thing built in you is discernment without cynicism. You have seen things fall apart. You have watched people wear masks and call it authenticity. You have sat in rooms where the words sounded right, but the energy felt wrong. And instead of becoming someone who trusts no one, you became someone who can tell the difference. You can feel truth now, not because you read about it in a book, but because you lived through enough falsehood that your spirit learned to recognize the real thing instantly. That discernment is not paranoia. It is a gift, and it was forged in the old home, because that is where the counterfeits lived. That is where the lessons in seeing clearly had to be learned. The third thing, and this one might be the hardest to accept, is patience without passivity. The old home taught you how to wait. Not the kind of waiting where you sit down and give up. The kind of waiting where you keep moving, keep building, keep showing up, even when nothing around you confirms that your effort matters. That is the rarest form of strength in existence, the ability to act faithfully in the absence of evidence that your actions are making a difference. And you did it, for years, some of you, for decades. You showed up, you kept your word, you honored commitments that no longer honored you, and you did it not because you are naive. You did it because something inside you, something deeper than logic, told you that the waiting was not forever. That instinct was correct. Now, I want to tell you a story about a young man who had everything a person could want at home and still had to leave. His name was Joseph, and if you know his story, you know it begins with a coat. A coat of many colors given to him by a father who adored him. Joseph was the favorite. He was the dreamer. He had visions of greatness, while his brothers had visions of fields and livestock. And for a while, that was enough. The coat was warm, the home was secure. The love of his father was a shield around him. But here is what most people miss about Joseph's story. Canaan was comfortable. Canaan was familiar. Canaan was home. And if Joseph had stayed in Canaan, he would have lived a good life, a safe life, a small life. He would have remained the favorite son of a wealthy man, known only to his family, buried in the same soil he was born in, and that would have been fine for anyone else. But it would have been a tragedy for Joseph. Because the dreams God planted in him, the visions of provision and leadership, and saving an entire nation from starvation, those dreams could not be fulfilled at his father's address. They needed a different zip code. They needed Egypt. And so God did something that looked cruel on the surface, but was surgically precise underneath. He allowed Joseph to be removed from the comfortable home, not gently, not with a farewell party, not with a clear explanation. He was thrown into a pit by his own brothers, sold to strangers, dragged to a foreign land where he knew no one, and no one knew him. And if you had asked Joseph on that day, tied up in the back of a merchant's wagon, watching his father's tents disappear over the horizon, he would not have called it relocation. He would have called it the worst day of his life. But it was the first step toward the palace. And I have to pause here and ask you something directly. Do you know what your Canaan is? The place that is comfortable but no longer growing you. The address that fits your body but has stopped fitting your spirit. The life that makes sense on paper but feels like wearing a coat that belonged to someone you used to be. Because here is what I know about you, chosen one. You are not someone who is afraid of hard work. You are not someone who runs from difficulty. If anything, you are the opposite. You are someone who stays too long, who gives too much, who keeps trying to make the old home work even after it has already served its purpose. And that loyalty, that faithfulness, it is one of your greatest strengths. But it can also become the very thing that keeps you from the new home God has already prepared. Because sometimes faithfulness to the old season becomes resistance to the new one. And that is not a failure. That is not a sin. That is simply human. It is hard to leave what you know. It is hard to walk away from a place where you bled and built and believed, even when the walls are closing in, even when the fruit has stopped growing, even when every sign in your spirit is pointing toward the exit. Now, if this alone were the full picture, we could stop here, and it would be enough. Understanding that the old home was formation, not failure, that alone would shift how you see the last several years of your life. But this is only the beginning of what I want to show you, because the old home was not just a classroom, it was a launch pad. And what was being built inside you during those hard years was not random character development. It was specific preparation for a specific destination. And there is a pattern that connects every divine relocation in history, a pattern so consistent that once you see it, you will recognize it immediately in your own life. I am going to walk you through that pattern. I am going to show you where you are inside it right now. And I am going to show you what is waiting at the other end, the gift, the calling, the connection, the home that was built with your name on the door. But I want to be honest with you about something first. I do not claim to know God's specific plan for your life. I cannot tell you the street name of your new home or the date on the calendar when you will arrive. What I can tell you is the pattern, and the pattern does not lie. It has repeated itself across thousands of years, across every sacred text, across every story of someone who was chosen and then relocated. And that pattern says, without exception, the disruption you are experiencing is not destruction, it is departure. Stay with me, chosen one. We have only just begun, and the most important truths are still ahead. If you stay until the end of this message, you will receive something that most people search their entire lives for and never find. You will receive clarity on why your current season feels the way it does. You will learn how to recognize the exact signs that God is actively moving you. You will understand the single greatest obstacle that keeps chosen ones trapped at their old address. And you will hear a declaration spoken over your new home that I believe will stay with you for years to come. This is not a message to play in the background. This is a message to receive with your whole heart. Stay close. There is something about the old home that nobody warns you about. Something that goes deeper than the discomfort, deeper than the stagnation, deeper even than the feeling of being stuck in a life that no longer fits. And it is this: the old home did not just shape your character, it shaped your identity. It told you who you were. It gave you a name, a role, a script to follow. And for a long time, that identity felt like the truth. It felt like you. Because when everyone around you treats you a certain way, when every conversation reinforces the same version of who you are, when every mirror in the room reflects the same face, you start to believe that face is the only one you have. But it is not. The person you became at the old home was real, but it was not complete. It was a chapter, not the whole book. And one of the most painful things God does before a relocation is strip away the identity that only worked at the old address. Let me say that again, because I need it to land. Before God moves you to the new home, He will strip away the version of you that only made sense in the old one. And this is where it gets uncomfortable, because you are not losing yourself. You are losing the costume you wore to survive where you were. The peacekeeper mask, the strong one mask, the one who never asks for help mask, the one who makes everyone else comfortable at the expense of their own comfort mask. These identities served you. I want to honor that. They kept you safe. They kept you functional. They kept you moving through seasons that would have crushed a lesser person, but they were never meant to be permanent. And the reason you have been feeling so raw lately, so exposed, so strangely vulnerable in situations where you used to feel armored, is because the stripping has already begun. God is not taking something from you. He is peeling back the layers that are too heavy for the journey ahead. The new home requires a lighter version of you, a truer version, a version that is not performing strength, but actually living from it. Think about it this way. When you move to a new house, you do not take everything. You sort through the closets. You open boxes you forgot existed. You hold things up and ask yourself, does this still fit? Does this still serve me? And some things you once loved, things that once defined your space, you set them down. Not because they were bad, but because they belong to the old address. That is what is happening inside you right now. God is sorting through the closets of your identity, and the things being removed are not your value. They are the outdated costumes that would not fit in the rooms he is preparing for you. Now, I want to tell you about a woman who understood this better than almost anyone in history. Her name was Ruth, and her story begins with a funeral. Ruth was a Moabite woman who married into an Israelite family. She loved her husband. She loved his mother, Naomi. She built a life in Moab that was small but real, and then everything collapsed. Her husband died. His brother died. Naomi's husband died. In the span of what must have felt like a blink, Ruth went from a young wife with a future to a childless widow with nothing. And Naomi, broken by grief, decided to go back to her homeland. Back to Bethlehem, back to a place Ruth had never been. And Naomi told Ruth the honest truth. She said, "Go back to your mother's house. Go back to your people. Go back to what you know. I have nothing left to offer you." And this is the moment that defines Ruth's entire legacy. She looked at the old home, Moab, the only land she had ever known, the streets she grew up on, the language she dreamed in, the graves of everyone she had lost. She looked at all of it, and then she looked at the unknown, a land she had never visited, a people she had never met, a future she could not predict or control. And she chose the unknown, not because she was brave by nature, not because she had a guarantee, not because an angel appeared and told her Bethlehem would give her a new husband and a place in the lineage of kings. She chose the unknown because the old home had nothing left to grow. Moab was finished, not because Moab was evil, but because Moab had completed its purpose in her life. Every lesson it could teach had been taught. Every relationship it could offer had been offered. And the soil that once nourished her had gone dry. And so she said the words that have echoed across centuries. "Where you go, I will go. Your people will be my people. Your God will be my God." She did not know she was walking toward Boaz. She did not know she was walking toward provision and purpose, and a legacy that would literally change the course of human history. She only knew one thing: Moab was over, and whatever lay ahead, even if it was hard, even if it was terrifying, it was forward. I am telling you Ruth's story because I believe it mirrors something happening in your own life right now. You are standing at the border between what was and what will be. Behind you is Moab, familiar, grieved, finished, and ahead of you is Bethlehem, unknown, uncharted, but alive with something your spirit can sense, even if your eyes cannot see it. And just like Ruth, you might not have a map, you might not have a guarantee. You might not have a single piece of evidence that the next chapter will be better than the last one, but you have something more reliable than evidence. You have the pull, that quiet, persistent, unshakable tug in your chest that says, it is time to move. Not run, not escape, move, with intention, with grief and gratitude held in the same breath. With your eyes forward and your heart still soft enough to feel everything, that pull is not anxiety, chosen one. That pull is God's navigation system activating inside you. And that is exactly the word I want to use, navigation. Because what is happening to you right now is not random upheaval. It is not life falling apart without reason. It is a recalculation. Think about what happens when you are driving and your GPS suddenly says, recalculating. For a moment, there is silence. The old route disappears from the screen. The confident voice that was telling you where to turn goes quiet. And in that gap, that brief stretch of silence between the old direction and the new one, you feel a flash of disorientation. Where am I going? Did I miss a turn? Is this thing even working? But here is what you do not see. Behind that silence, the GPS is processing information you do not have access to. It knows there is a road closure ahead. It knows there is a faster route that just opened. It knows something about the landscape of the next 50 miles that you, sitting in the driver's seat, cannot possibly know from where you are. And so, it recalculates. Not because you did something wrong, but because the original route is no longer the best way to get you where you need to go. That is what God is doing right now. Your life is not falling apart. Your route is being recalculated. The old directions, the ones that made sense for the last 5 years, the last 10 years, the ones you memorized and followed faithfully, they have served their purpose. And now, the screen has gone quiet for a moment. The voice has paused. And the silence feels like abandonment, but it is actually the most sophisticated form of guidance you have ever received. God is loading a new route, and the new route leads to your new home. But here is what makes the recalculating phase so difficult. During that pause, while the new direction is loading, you are still driving. You are still moving through space. You are still showing up to the same job, the same conversations, the same routines, and everything around you looks normal, but nothing inside you feels normal. That is the gap. That is the in-between. And it is the loneliest phase of any relocation because you cannot explain it to the people around you. You cannot say, God is recalculating my route, and expect them to understand. They see the same house, the same car, the same schedule. They do not feel what you feel. They do not hear the silence you hear, and so they tell you to be grateful, to stop overthinking, to trust the process, and they mean well, but they are reading an old map, and you are standing in a territory they have never visited. I want to give you something practical right now, something you can use today, tonight, this week, to help you see clearly during the recalculating phase. I call it the energy audit, and it is simpler than it sounds. Here is what I want you to do. Over the next few days, pay close attention to where your energy goes after you interact with specific parts of your life, not your thoughts, not your opinions, your energy, the actual physical sensation of being drained or being restored. When you leave a conversation, notice, do you feel lighter or heavier? When you finish a day at work, notice, do you feel emptied or filled? When you spend time with certain people, notice, does your chest open or does it tighten? You do not need to make any decisions based on this yet. Just observe, because your energy is one of the most honest indicators God has given you. Your mind can rationalize anything. Your emotions can swing based on weather and sleep and what you ate for breakfast. But your energy tells you the truth. The places that drain you consistently, not occasionally, but consistently, are the places that belong to the old home, and the places that restore you, even if they are unfamiliar, even if they are new, even if they are uncomfortable, in ways you cannot yet explain. Those are the coordinates of the new home beginning to surface. Write this down if you need to. Drain and restore. That is your compass. During the recalculating phase, your energy will show you what your mind cannot. Let me tell you about someone who learned this the hard way. There was a man, I will not share his name, but I will share his story, because it might be your story too. He spent 15 years at the same company. Not because he loved it, but because it was stable. It paid the bills. It gave him a title that sounded respectable at dinner parties. And for a long time, that was enough. But somewhere around year 12, the energy shifted. He started waking up on Monday mornings with a heaviness in his stomach that no amount of coffee could dissolve. The work was the same. The people were the same. But something inside him had moved, and the chair he sat in every day no longer fit the shape of the person he had become. He tried everything. He reorganized his office. He asked for new responsibilities. He took a vacation and came back, hoping the feeling would be gone. But it was still there, waiting for him, sitting in his chair like a guest who refuses to leave. And one evening, driving home from a meeting that could have been an email, he heard a voice in his spirit, not audible, not dramatic, just a quiet, clear impression that said, "The seat no longer fits. It is time to stand up." He did not quit the next day. He did not burn bridges. He did not make a scene. He simply started paying attention. He noticed where his energy drained and where it restored. He noticed that the ideas that made him come alive at 3 in the morning had nothing to do with his job description. He noticed that the people who saw him, really saw him, were not inside the office. They were on the edges of his life, in conversations he almost did not have, in rooms he almost did not enter. And 6 months later, he was gone, not running, not escaping, graduating, moving to an address that matched the person he had quietly, permanently become. The old home did not fail him. It finished with him, and the new one was already waiting. Now, there is something I need to share with you that I have been holding back until this moment. Something that connects everything we have talked about so far: the stagnation, the energy drain, the foggy feeling of being stuck, in a way that might surprise you. Scientists at Princeton University conducted a series of studies on what happens inside the human brain during major life transitions. And what they found is remarkable. They discovered that there is a specific brainwave, a powerful, fast-moving signal called the gamma wave, that is directly linked to clarity, to intuition, to those moments when the fog lifts and you suddenly see the path forward. And here is what makes this relevant to you. During periods of prolonged stagnation, when you are trapped in an environment that no longer fits, gamma activity drops. It does not shut off completely, but it dims, like a lighthouse in thick fog. The signal is still there, but you cannot see it, and that is why you feel stuck, not because you lack intelligence, not because you lack faith, but because the very brainwave responsible for breakthrough thinking has been suppressed by the environment you are sitting in. I am going to come back to this, but I want you to hold on to that word, gamma. Remember it, because later in this message, I am going to show you something that scientists have developed to address this directly. And it connects to your relocation in a way that will make your entire journey click into focus. You have been with me for a while now, chosen one, and I do not take that lightly. Most people would have moved on by now. Most people would have scrolled past, clicked away, looked for something shorter, something easier, something that does not require them to sit with the weight of their own transformation. But you are still here. And that tells me something about who you are. It tells me that the pull I described earlier, the one that says it is time to move, is not a passing feeling for you. It is a conviction. It is a knowing that lives deeper than thought. And the fact that you are still listening, still open, still leaning in, that is not random. That is the mark of someone whose relocation has already begun. Before we move forward, I want to pause and say something that does not get said often enough in messages like this. It is okay to grieve the old home, even as you feel the pull toward the new one. Even as you recognize that the season has changed. Even as you understand, intellectually, that the stagnation was a signal and the disruption is a departure, it is still okay to feel the weight of what you are leaving behind, because the old home was not nothing. The old home held real moments, real laughter, real tears, real late nights and early mornings, and conversations that shaped you in ways you will not fully understand for years to come. The people there mattered. The memories there mattered. The version of you who lived and loved and struggled there, that version mattered. And grief does not mean you are going backward. Grief means what you had was real. It means you did not pass through that season with a cold heart. It means you are human enough to honor what was, even as you walk toward what will be. So, if there are tears right now, let them fall. If there is a tightness in your throat, let it be there. You do not have to be strong in this moment. You do not have to have it all together. You just have to be willing to keep moving. Because God does not relocate you away from grief. He relocates you through it. And on the other side of that grief is something you cannot yet imagine. There is one more thing I want to show you about the old home before we leave it behind. And it has to do with something Ruth understood that most people miss. When Ruth said, "Where you go, I will go," she was not just choosing a destination, she was choosing a departure. She was saying goodbye to Moab, not with resentment, not with bitterness, not with the sharp edges of someone who hated where she had been. She was saying goodbye with open hands, with gratitude and grief held in the same breath. And that is the posture God is asking of you right now. Not anger at the old season, not rejection of the people and places that shaped you, but an open-handed release that says, "I honor what this was. I am grateful for what it built in me, and I trust that what comes next will be worth the ache of letting go." That is not weakness. That is the highest form of spiritual maturity. It is the ability to hold two truths at the same time. The old home was good, and the old home is over. You have now seen something that very few people ever understand about their own story. You have seen that the stagnation was not punishment. The frustration was not failure. The discomfort was not a sign that God had forgotten you. Every hard season, every closed door, every midnight prayer that seemed to hit the ceiling and bounce back, all of it was formation. All of it was preparation. All of it was God building in you the exact set of qualities, resilience, discernment, patience, that you will need at the new address. And just like Joseph could not have governed Egypt without the years in the pit and the prison, and just like Ruth could not have found Boaz without the grief that sent her to Bethlehem, you could not become who you are about to become without every single thing you walked through at the old home. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was accidental, and the person who emerged from that season is exactly the person the new home has been waiting for. Now, take a breath. The heaviest part of this journey, the looking back, it is behind us. What lies ahead is lighter, not easier, but lighter, because now we turn our eyes forward. And what I am about to show you next is the part that most people never hear, the part about where you are right now, the space between the old home and the new one. Most people call it limbo. I call it the most sacred ground you will ever stand on, and what happens there will change everything. There is a place that no map can show you, no address can define, and no one around you can see. It is the space between the old home and the new one, the hallway between two rooms, the stretch of open road between the city you left and the city you have not yet reached. And right now, chosen one, I believe you are standing in it. You have already felt the truth of what we talked about. The old home did its work. The formation happened. The costumes are being stripped. The GPS has spoken the word, recalculating. And something deep in your spirit shifted, not today, not in this message, but weeks or months ago, when you first felt the pull that said, "This is no longer where I belong." But here is the part no one prepares you for. The space between is real. It is not a metaphor. It is not a poetic way of describing a bad mood. It is an actual phase in the relocation process, and it has specific characteristics that are as recognizable as street signs if you know what to look for. You are between addresses right now. You have emotionally checked out of the old home, but you have not physically arrived at the new one. Or maybe you have physically moved, but your heart is still standing in the living room of the place you left, staring at the empty walls, wondering if you made a mistake. Either way, you are in transit. And transit is the loneliest phase of any divine relocation, because you do not belong to the old, and you have not yet been received by the new. You are in between, and the in-between has no welcome mat. But I need you to hear this. The in-between is not emptiness. It is not abandonment. It is not God forgetting to finish what he started. The in-between is sacred ground. It is the place where your faith is refined from belief into knowing, because belief says, I think the new home exists. But knowing says, I have walked through the fire between the old and the new, and I am still standing. That is a different kind of faith, a faith that was tested not by crisis but by silence, not by attack but by absence, not by someone saying no, but by no one saying anything at all. And that kind of faith, the kind forged in the in-between, is the only kind strong enough to carry the weight of what is waiting at the new home. So do not rush through this phase. Do not numb it. Do not distract yourself from it. Because the in-between is not the waiting room before the real thing. The in-between is the real thing. And what God is doing in you right now, in this exact stretch of sacred silence, is preparing the last piece of who you need to become before the door of the new home opens. Now, I want to show you something specific, because the transit zone is not just a feeling, it produces visible, measurable, unmistakable signs. And if you recognize them, you will stop questioning whether God is moving and start cooperating with the movement. There are 7 signs that a divine relocation is actively happening in your life. Not signs that one might happen someday, signs that it is happening right now. And as I name each one, I want you to pay attention to the ones that hit differently, the ones that make your chest tighten or your breath catch, because those are not just signs, those are confirmations. The first sign is doors closing without your permission, not doors you chose to shut, doors that shut themselves, the opportunity that was supposed to come through, and then vanished without explanation, the relationship that slowly, quietly withdrew, even though you did nothing wrong. The routine that used to sustain you but now feels like pushing a boulder uphill every single morning. You have been standing in front of these closed doors, knocking, trying to pry them open, wondering what you did to deserve the silence on the other side. But you did nothing wrong. Those doors are not rejecting you. They are redirecting you. God is closing the entrances to the old home so that the only path remaining is the one that leads forward, and I know that is painful. Because some of those doors had names on them. Some of those doors were people you loved. Some of those doors represented years of investment. But a closed door at the old address is not a punishment. It is a compass. It is God saying, not here, not anymore, ahead. The second sign is a shift in your sleep. This one is subtle, but once I name it, you will recognize it immediately. Your sleep has changed. Not necessarily insomnia, although it might be. But the quality of your rest has shifted. You wake up at strange hours, 2 in the morning, 3:30, 4:15, and you lie there in the dark, fully awake, your mind unusually clear, your spirit unusually alert, as though something is trying to reach you in the silence that the daytime does not allow. Or maybe it is the opposite. Maybe you sleep, but you do not rest. You wake up heavy, drained, as though your spirit was working through the night, processing something enormous that your conscious mind has not caught up to yet. This is not a medical condition, chosen one. This is your spirit pacing. It is pacing because it knows the move is coming, and it cannot settle in a place it has already outgrown. Just like the night before a long journey, When your body lies down but your mind is already at the airport, your spirit is already at the new home. And it is restless because the rest of you has not caught up. The third sign is synchronicities pointing in unfamiliar directions. You keep hearing the name of a city you have never visited. A career path you never considered keeps appearing in random conversations with random people. Someone mentions an opportunity, and even though it has nothing to do with your current life, something inside you lights up for a second before logic shuts it down. These are not coincidences. These are breadcrumbs. God does not hand you the full address of the new home on day one. He drops coordinates one at a time. A name here, a feeling there. A conversation that stays in your mind 3 days longer than it should. And each breadcrumb, by itself, seems random. But when you step back and look at the trail, they all point in the same direction. Pay attention to the unfamiliar things that keep showing up. They are not distractions, they are directions. The fourth sign is a growing intolerance for things you used to accept. This is the one that confuses people the most, because it looks like you are becoming difficult, picky, hard to please. And the people around you might even say that. They might say, "What happened to you? You used to be so easygoing. You used to be fine with this." And they are right. You used to be fine with it. But you are not the same person anymore. Your tolerance has not decreased because you are becoming bitter. Your tolerance has decreased because your frequency has shifted. You are vibrating at a level that no longer matches the low-resolution version of life you were living at the old address. Things that once felt acceptable now feel suffocating. Conversations that once felt normal now feel hollow. Environments that once felt safe now feel stagnant. And that is not a flaw. That is a recalibration. Your internal compass is adjusting to the coordinates of the new home. And everything that does not match those coordinates will start to feel wrong, even if it used to feel right. The fifth sign is unexpected conversations with strangers about change and movement. This one is almost eerie when it happens. You are standing in line at a store, or sitting in a waiting room, or having a conversation with someone you barely know, and out of nowhere they say something about transitions, about new beginnings, about leaving the familiar, and it lands in your spirit like a lightning bolt, even though to them it was just small talk. Or maybe it is not a stranger. Maybe it is a friend who does not know your situation, who casually says something like, "I just feel like something big is about to change for you." And they say it lightly, like a passing comment. But it hits you in a place that has been waiting to be hit. God speaks through people, chosen one, not just prophets and pastors, through cashiers and co-workers and strangers on park benches. And when the same message keeps arriving through different mouths, that is not coincidence. That is confirmation. The sixth sign is financial shifts. Not necessarily a sudden windfall, although it could be. More often it looks like this. The income streams connected to the old home start to thin. The job pays the same, but the expenses around it grow. The side projects that used to generate extra income quietly dry up. And at the same time, small, unexpected provisions begin appearing from directions you never anticipated. A refund you forgot about. An offer that comes out of nowhere. A resource that shows up at the exact moment you needed it, from a source you never would have predicted. This is God rerouting the financial current. The river of provision is not drying up. It is changing course. It is pulling away from the old address and beginning to flow toward the new one. And if you are only watching the old streams, you will think you are losing. But if you lift your eyes and look at where the new water is coming from, you will see that God is already funding the relocation before you have packed a single box. And the seventh sign, the one that ties all the others together, is this: a deep, inexplicable peace underneath the surface, chaos. Everything I just described, the closed doors, the restless sleep, the financial shifts, the growing intolerance, all of it sounds chaotic. And on the surface it is. If you look at the circumstances alone, it looks like your life is unraveling. But underneath all of it, in a place that logic cannot reach and fear cannot touch, there is a stillness, a knowing, a quiet hum of certainty that says, even though I cannot see where this is going, I am exactly where I am supposed to be. That peace is not denial. It is not naivety. It is the signature of God's hand on a transition, because when the enemy disrupts your life, you feel chaos all the way down, no peace at any level. But when God disrupts your life, the surface is turbulent, but the foundation is steady. The waves are high, but the anchor holds. If you have that peace, even a whisper of it, even a thread of it so thin you could almost miss it, hold on to it. That peace is the proof that this relocation is not happening to you. It is happening for you. Now, let me ask you something. Of those 7 signs, how many did you recognize in your own life? If the answer is 3 or more, what I am about to share with you next is not theory. It is a mirror, because there is a man in the ancient texts whose story reads like a blueprint for everything you are experiencing right now. And his name is Abraham. God came to Abraham and spoke some of the most terrifying and beautiful words ever recorded. He said, "Leave your country, leave your relatives, leave your father's house. Go to a land that I will show you." Think about what that means. God did not say, "Go to Canaan." He did not give an address. He did not provide a map. He did not say, "It is 300 miles northeast, turn left at the second river, look for the olive grove on the hill." He said, "Go, and I will show you." Which means, start walking, and I will reveal the destination as you move. That is the most uncomfortable kind of guidance there is, because it means you have to take the first step before you see the second step. You have to leave before you know where you are going. You have to trust the voice more than you trust the visibility, and Abraham did it. An old man with a wife, with livestock, with servants, with an entire life built on the soil he was standing on, packed everything up and walked into the unknown. Not because he was fearless, but because the voice that told him to go was louder than the comfort that told him to stay. And here is the part that changes everything about how you see your own transit zone. Abraham did not arrive at the promised land the next morning. He walked for days, for weeks, through terrain he did not recognize, past people he did not know, under skies he had never slept beneath. And during that walk, between the old home and the new one, God did not explain the plan. God did not apologize for the inconvenience. God did not send daily updates saying, "You are 47% of the way there." God simply said, "Keep going." And that is what the transit zone feels like. The voice is not loud. The signs are not billboards. The confirmation comes in whispers, in breadcrumbs, in moments so small that if you blink, you miss them. But they are there. And they are enough. You do not need a full map, chosen one. You need the next step, just the next one. And if you look closely at your life right now, I believe that next step is already visible. Not the final destination, not the street name, not the house number, but the next step. The one that requires you to lift your foot and place it on ground you have not stood on before. That is all Abraham had, and it was enough to take him to a land that would change the world. And I need to stop here and say something that I believe is important for you to hear. It is not just you. Right now, all across the world, chosen ones are going through this exact same shift. Thousands of people, right now, in this very hour, are lying awake at 3 in the morning feeling the same pull you feel, are sitting at desks that no longer fit, wondering if the restlessness means something, are standing in the transit zone between the old and the new and feeling the same sacred loneliness that you feel. You are not alone in this, and you are not crazy. You are part of a global movement of people who are being repositioned by something larger than any of them can see. And the fact that you are aware of it, the fact that you can feel it, the fact that you did not dismiss it as anxiety or midlife crisis or burnout, that tells me something specific about who you are. You are not just a chosen one, you are something more specific than that. You are a pioneer. A pioneer is the one who goes first, the one who leaves the familiar before anyone else is willing to, the one who walks into territory that has no footprints, no path, no map, and says, "I will build the road so others can follow." That is who you are. That is why the transit zone is harder for you than it is for most. Because pioneers do not have the luxury of following someone else's trail. Pioneers make the trail. And making a trail through unmarked territory is the loneliest, bravest, most important work a human being can do. God did not choose you for comfort. He chose you for courage. And the transit zone is not punishing you. It is confirming you, because only a pioneer would still be moving forward in the dark. And before we move into the next part of this message, I want to promise you something. Before this message ends, I am going to speak something over your life, a declaration over your new home, over your new season, over the gift that is waiting for you at the address God has already prepared. And I do not say this lightly. I believe what I am going to speak over you at the end of this message is the reason this entire conversation was placed in your path today. So, stay with me. The deepest truths are still ahead. And what comes next is the part that will change how you navigate every remaining day in the transit zone. Because here is what I have not told you yet. There is one obstacle, just one, that keeps more chosen ones trapped at their old address than any external circumstance ever could. It is not a person. It is not a lack of resources. It is not bad timing. It is something you carry inside you, and until you name it, you cannot release it. And until you release it, the door to the new home stays closed. Not because God is withholding it, but because your hands are too full of the old to receive the new. Let me show you what I mean. I told you, there is one obstacle that keeps more chosen ones trapped at their old address than anything else. And I told you, it is not external. It is not a person blocking your path or a circumstance holding you hostage. It is something you carry, something so familiar that you might not even recognize it as an obstacle. It is attachment to the old identity, not attachment to the old home itself. Not attachment to the city or the job or the relationship. Attachment to who you were inside that life, the role you played, the name people called you. The version of yourself that fit perfectly into rooms that have already served their purpose. And I know this is uncomfortable, because the old identity is not a bad thing. It is not a weakness or a flaw. The old identity kept you alive. It got you through the hardest seasons. It was the armor you wore when the world was swinging at you, and you did not have time to figure out who you really were underneath it all. But armor is not identity. And the thing about armor is that it protects you and it limits you. It keeps the blows from landing, but it also keeps the blessings from reaching your skin. Let me explain this in a way that makes it impossible to forget. Your brain, the actual physical organ sitting between your ears, has a feature that most people never learn about. It is called the comfort zone threshold. And despite what motivational speakers tell you, The comfort zone is not about being lazy or scared. It is a neurological boundary. Your brain creates it automatically, without your permission, based on the patterns it has observed in your environment. Here is how it works. Your brain monitors everything around you, every conversation, every routine, every relationship, every emotion, and it builds a map of what is normal, what is expected, what is safe. And once that map is built, your brain does everything in its power to keep you inside it. Not because it wants to limit you, but because its primary job is survival. And survival means staying in the territory you know. This is why leaving the old home feels so physically uncomfortable. It is not just an emotional experience, it is a neurological one. Your amygdala, the alarm system in your brain, does not distinguish between dangerous and different. It fires the same warning signal when you step toward a lion and when you step toward a new job offer. To your brain, unfamiliar equals unsafe. Period. So, when you stand at the edge of the transit zone, looking toward the new home, and you feel that flood of anxiety, that voice screaming, "Go back," that is not cowardice. That is not God telling you to stay. That is your brain doing exactly what it was designed to do, protecting you from the unknown. But here is the problem. The unknown is exactly where God is taking you. And the brain cannot tell the difference between a threat and a transformation. This means something profound for you, chosen one. It means that the fear you feel when you think about leaving the old identity behind is not a sign that you should stay. It is a sign that you are at the border. It is the alarm that rings when you are about to cross from known territory into promised territory, and every single person who has ever been relocated by God has heard that same alarm. Abraham heard it. Ruth heard it. Joseph heard it. Moses heard it so loudly that he argued with a burning bush. The alarm is normal. The alarm is expected. And the alarm is not the voice of God. It is the voice of a brain that has not yet been updated with the new coordinates. So, if the alarm is not the obstacle, what is? The obstacle is the story you tell yourself about the alarm. And that story usually takes one of three shapes. I am going to name all three, because I believe at least one of them is playing on repeat inside you right now, and once you hear it named out loud, it loses most of its power. The first story is the one that whispers, "The new home is not really for someone like me." This is the deepest one, the quietest one, the one that does not shout. It just hums in the background, so soft that you almost mistake it for your own thoughts. It sounds like common sense. It sounds like humility. It sounds like, "Who am I to expect more? Who am I to think God would prepare something extraordinary for me?" And on the surface, that sounds like modesty, like a grounded, realistic view of yourself. But underneath it is something far darker. It is a belief that you are fundamentally not enough. That the people who get new homes, new seasons, new gifts, they are a different category of person, more talented, more worthy, more favored. And you, despite everything you have walked through, despite every sign and every whisper and every restless night that pointed you toward the new, you are the exception. You are the one God started to relocate and then changed his mind about. That is a lie, chosen one. And it is the single most effective lie the enemy has ever designed, because it does not feel like a lie. It feels like self-awareness. But let me tell you what real self-awareness looks like. Real self-awareness says, "I have been through fire, and I am still here. I have been broken, and I chose to stay soft. I have been overlooked, and I did not become bitter. I have walked in the dark, and I did not lose my way." That is not the resume of someone who does not deserve a new home. That is the resume of the exact person God builds new homes for. The second story is the one that says, "What if I get there and I do not belong?" This is the imposter's anthem, and it usually starts playing the moment the new home begins to feel real. As long as the relocation is theoretical, as long as it is someday, and maybe, and I hope, the imposter stays quiet. But the moment you take a real step, the moment you start to actually move toward the new, the imposter stands up in the back of your mind and says, "You know they are going to find out. You know you do not really have what it takes. You know this new season is going to expose every weakness you have been hiding, and here is why that voice is so convincing. Because it is partially true. The new home will expose you. It will expose your insecurities. It will expose your limitations. It will expose the places where you are still learning and still growing and still figuring things out. But exposure is not the same as disqualification. You are not supposed to arrive at the new home fully formed. You are supposed to arrive willing. And the new home is the place where the formation continues, not where the performance begins. You do not have to be ready, chosen one. You just have to be willing. And willingness is enough. It has always been enough. The third story, and this is the one that catches the most compassionate people, is the one that says, "But what about the people I am leaving behind?" This is the survivor's guilt of the chosen one. Because you are not selfish. You are not someone who walks away from people without looking back. You are the one who stays, the one who carries, the one who holds things together long after everyone else has let go. And the thought of moving into a new season while someone you love is still stuck in the old one feels like abandonment. But I need to reframe this for you, because this belief, this beautiful and devastating belief, will keep you chained to the old address for the rest of your life if you do not name it for what it is. You are not abandoning anyone by stepping into your new home. You are creating a doorway. When a pioneer moves forward, they do not leave the people behind in the dark. They bring back light. They build a road. They create proof that the journey is possible. And the people you love, the ones you are worried about, they are far more likely to find their own new home if they see you step into yours first. Your obedience is not selfish. Your obedience is an invitation. Now, I want to give you something you can use immediately. Not tomorrow, not next week, right now. A framework for discerning the difference between two things that feel almost identical on the surface but are completely different underneath. Because one of the most dangerous things a chosen one can do is confuse running away with being relocated. They feel similar. Both involve leaving. Both involve discomfort. Both involve stepping away from what you know. But one is fear in motion, and the other is faith in motion. And knowing the difference will save you from the deepest regret of your life. There are 3 questions, and I want you to hold each one in your mind and answer it honestly, not with the answer that sounds spiritual, with the answer that is true. The first question is this: does leaving bring you peace or just relief? There is a massive difference between the two. Relief is what you feel when you escape something painful. It is temporary. It fades the moment the adrenaline drops. And it often leaves behind a residue of guilt, a sense that you ran instead of faced. Peace is different. Peace does not come from escaping the pain. Peace comes from knowing, deep in the marrow of your being, that the season is complete, that you gave everything you had, that you stayed long enough to learn what needed to be learned, and that the leaving is not running, it is responding. If leaving brings peace, even peace mixed with grief, that is not escape. That is graduation. If leaving brings only relief, with no peace underneath, wait, sit with it longer. There may still be something unfinished at the old address. The second question: Are you moving toward something or away from something? Running away looks backward. Its energy is reactive. It says, I cannot take this anymore. And the direction does not matter as long as it is away from here. Being relocated looks forward. Its energy is responsive. It says, something is calling me there. And even though the leaving is painful, the pull of the new is stronger than the push of the old. Check your orientation, chosen one. When you close your eyes and think about the change, do you see what you are leaving or what you are walking toward? The answer will tell you everything. And the third question, did the restlessness begin before the pain or after? This is the one that reveals the truth most clearly. If the restlessness started after something went wrong, after the betrayal, after the disappointment, after the fight, then the restlessness might be a wound looking for an exit. And wounds need healing, not relocation. But if the restlessness started before the pain, if you were already sensing the shift before the first door closed, if the pull was already there before the discomfort arrived, then the restlessness is not a reaction, it is a calling. And the pain that followed was not the cause of your leaving. It was God clearing the path so you could follow the calling without looking back. Think carefully about the timeline. When did the restlessness begin? Before the crisis or because of the crisis? Your answer to these three questions will give you more clarity than 100 hours of overthinking, because overthinking is the mind trying to solve a puzzle that belongs to the spirit, and the spirit does not argue. It knows. It has always known. You just needed the right questions to let it speak. Now, I want to take you back to Joseph, because there is a chapter in his story that most people rush through, and it is the chapter that speaks directly to where you are right now. We talked about Joseph in Canaan, the comfortable home, the coat of many colors, the favorite son with big dreams in a small town. And we talked about how God allowed him to be removed from that comfort, thrown into a pit by his own brothers, sold to strangers, dragged to a country where everything was unfamiliar. But there is a middle chapter that gets overlooked, the chapter between the pit and the palace. The chapter that took place in a house that belonged to a man named Potiphar, and then in a prison that belonged to a pharaoh. And this is the chapter that changes everything. Because in Potiphar's house, Joseph did not sit down and cry. He did not fold. He did not spend his days staring out the window, dreaming about Canaan. He worked. He served. He brought excellence to a situation he did not choose and an address he did not want. And over time, something remarkable happened. He rose. Not because he was trying to impress anyone, but because the gifts inside him could not be contained by the circumstances around him, and then he was thrown into prison. A second relocation, a second pit. And if there was ever a moment when Joseph had the right to say, God, I trusted you, and you led me into one disaster after another, this was it. Pit, slavery, false accusation, prison, each address worse than the last. But Joseph did the same thing in prison that he did in Potiphar's house. He served, he worked. He brought the same excellence, the same integrity, the same faith to a dungeon that he brought to a mansion. And in that prison, he met two men who would eventually lead him to the palace. Here is the lesson buried inside Joseph's story that most people miss. The pit was not the destination. The pit was the passageway, and the prison was not the punishment. The prison was the positioning. Every address between the old home and the new one, every stop along the way, every detour and delay and demotion, was God moving pieces into place on a chessboard that Joseph could not see. Every address looked like a step backward, and every single one was a step forward. And I believe that is true for you too. The places you have been, the detours you have taken, the stops along the way that looked like setbacks. They were not mistakes. They were corridor addresses. Temporary rooms in a hallway that leads somewhere specific. And just like Joseph, you are being positioned, not punished, not forgotten, positioned. And the palace is at the end of the hallway. Now, before we move into the next phase of this message, I want to do something that I believe is necessary, not just helpful. Necessary. I want to help you release. Because you have been carrying something, chosen one. You have been carrying the weight of the old identity, the anchor of attachment, the fear of the unknown, the guilt of leaving, the stories your mind tells you when the lights go off at night. And you have been carrying it for so long that it has started to feel like part of your body, like if you set it down, you would not know who you are without it, but you would. You would know exactly who you are. Because who you are was never defined by what you carry. Who you are was defined by the one who called you before you picked any of it up. So here is what I want you to do. Not physically, just in your mind. I want you to picture yourself standing at a border. On one side is everything familiar. The old address, the old name, the old role, the old patterns. On the other side is open land. No structures yet, no signposts, just space and light, and the quiet hum of something waiting to be built. And in your hands, you are holding a suitcase. Heavy, worn, packed with everything you have been carrying from the old home. And I want you to see yourself, in your mind, setting that suitcase down, not throwing it away, not kicking it to the side in anger, just gently, respectfully, gratefully, setting it on the ground. And, as you set it down, feel the weight lift from your arms, from your shoulders, from your chest. That suitcase held real things, important things, things that were true for the season they belonged to. But they are not true for the season you are entering. And the new home does not need you to arrive heavy. The new home needs you to arrive open. So leave the old armor on the border. Leave the old stories on the border. Leave the fear of not being enough on the border. And step across. Light. Open. Ready? And I want to remind you of something I mentioned earlier. Something that connects this release to something happening inside your brain right now. Remember the gamma wave. The brain wave that Princeton researchers linked to clarity, to intuition, to those moments when the fog lifts and you suddenly see the path forward. I told you that during prolonged stagnation and fear, gamma activity drops. Your mental clarity dims at the exact moment you need it most. And this is not a coincidence. This is a design flaw in the old environment. The old home, with its draining energy and its closed doors and its mounting pressure, it was not just limiting your spirit, it was limiting your brain. The fog you have been feeling, that heavy, cloudy, I cannot think straight sensation that shows up every time you try to make a decision about the future, that is not confusion. That is gamma depletion. And the reason this matters is because the transit zone, the space between the old and the new, is where the most critical decisions of your life need to be made. Do I stay or do I go? Do I trust the pull or do I obey the fear? Do I step forward into the unknown or do I retreat into the familiar? These are not casual questions. These are the questions that determine whether you reach the new home or spend the rest of your life circling the parking lot of the old one. And to answer them clearly, you need gamma. You need the fog to lift. You need the lighthouse to cut through. There is more to say about this, and I will come back to it. But for now, hold on to this understanding. The mental fog is not your fault, and it is not permanent. There is a way through it, and it is closer than you think. Chosen one, you have been listening for a long time now, and I need to stop and acknowledge that what you are doing right now is not passive. Listening to a message like this, truly listening, not just hearing the words, but letting them touch the places inside you that have been sealed off and guarded and protected, that takes courage. That takes a kind of vulnerability that most people avoid their entire lives. And the fact that you are still here, still open, still leaning in, tells me something that I believe with my whole heart. You are not someone who is thinking about being relocated. You are someone whose relocation has already started. The old identity is already loosening. The suitcase is already lighter than it was when we began. And the border between the old and the new is closer than it has ever been. You have walked through the old home and understood its purpose. You have stood in the transit zone and recognized the signs. You have named the obstacle and begun the release. And now it is time for the part of this journey that will make everything we have discussed feel like it was leading somewhere specific, because it was. It is time to see the new home, chosen one. Not as a dream, not as a wish, but as a place that has already been built, already been furnished, already been marked with your name. Take a breath. What comes next is lighter. It is brighter. And it will give you something you have not felt in a very long time: direction. For everything we have walked through together, the old home, the transit zone, the obstacle, the release, all of it has been pointing here, to this moment, to what I am about to show you now, because you have earned the right to see it, not by being perfect, not by having it all figured out, but by doing something far harder. You stayed. You stayed through the grief. You stayed through the fear. You stayed through the fog. And staying, chosen one, is the entrance fee to what comes next. So let me show you the new home, not as a fantasy, not as a someday dream that dissolves when you open your eyes, but as a place with real qualities, real characteristics, real texture that you will recognize the moment you step into it. Because the new home is not a location you discover, it is a frequency you arrive at. And when you match that frequency, everything around you begins to rearrange itself to fit the person you have become. The first thing you will notice about the new home is that effort starts to feel different. I do not mean that life becomes easy. It does not. The new home is not a vacation. It is not a place where everything is handed to you while you sit in a chair and receive. There is work at the new home. Real work. Hard work. Work that demands everything you have. But here is the difference. At the old home, you were pushing, constantly pushing, pushing doors that would not open, pushing conversations that would not land, pushing yourself through routines that drained you faster than they filled you. And the exhaustion you felt was not the exhaustion of meaningful effort, it was the exhaustion of misalignment, of trying to build something in soil that could not hold it. At the new home, the effort shifts from pushing to flowing. The doors still require you to knock, but when you knock, they open. Not every time, not instantly, but with a rhythm that makes sense. The work is still demanding, but it fills you instead of emptying you. The struggle is still real, but it feels purposeful instead of pointless. And at the end of the day, when you sit down and take a breath, you feel tired in the way a builder feels tired after raising a wall. Not depleted, accomplished. That is the first quality of the new home, alignment. And you will feel it in your bones the moment you arrive, because your body has been craving it for years. It will feel like finally exhaling after holding your breath for a decade. The second thing you will notice is the people. At the old address, you spent an enormous amount of energy explaining yourself, justifying your decisions, defending your calling, translating your vision into language that people around you could understand, and watching their eyes glaze over halfway through. You were speaking a language that your environment did not have the ears for. At the new home, the people around you will not need the translation. They will see your gift before you explain it. They will recognize your calling before you defend it. Not because they are more intelligent or more spiritual than the people at the old address, but because they are operating on the same frequency. And when two people share a frequency, understanding does not require effort. It happens the way breathing happens, naturally, automatically, without force. And I want to be specific about this because it matters. The right connections at the new home will not be people who agree with everything you say. That is not alignment. That is an echo chamber. The right connections will be people who challenge you and celebrate you. People who push you forward and catch you when you fall. People who see the fullness of who you are, the light and the shadow, and choose to stand beside you anyway. Those people exist. They are real, and they are not at the old address. They are at the new one, waiting, the same way you have been waiting for them. The third quality of the new home is something I call provision proximity. At the old address, the resources you needed were always at a distance. The money came, but it came hard. The opportunities arrived, but they arrived late. You had to stretch, scramble, beg the universe for every breakthrough, and even when it showed up with conditions and complications and fine print. At the new home, provision moves closer, not because you suddenly become wealthy, but because your purpose and your provision begin to occupy the same space. At the old home, what you were called to do and what you were paid to do were two different things. At the new home, they converge. The thing that sets your soul on fire becomes the thing that puts food on your table. Not overnight, not in the first week, but over time, as you settle into the new address, you will notice that the gap between calling and income shrinks. And one day, you will look up and realize that you are being sustained by the very gift you were afraid to trust. That is not a fairy tale. That is a pattern. And it has repeated itself in the lives of every chosen one who was brave enough to leave the old address and trust the new coordinates. The fourth quality is one that might surprise you. It is rest. Not the absence of work, not retirement, not lying on a beach. Rest. Sacred rest. The kind of rest that comes when you are no longer fighting to justify your existence, when you are no longer performing for people who cannot see you, when you are no longer carrying the weight of an identity that expired 3 seasons ago. At the old home, rest was something you stole in the margins, a few minutes here, a quiet hour there, always borrowed, always interrupted, always accompanied by guilt, as though resting meant you were not trying hard enough, not faithful enough, not grateful enough for what you had. At the new home, rest is structural. It is built into the foundation, not because the new home has fewer demands, but because the demands align with who you actually are. And when your work matches your design, you do not need to recover from it the way you recover from something that was slowly breaking you. You will sleep differently at the new home. Chosen one. I know that sounds small, but after everything your body has been through, after all the nights it carried you through seasons it was never built for, the gift of real rest will feel like the most generous thing God has ever given you. And the fifth quality, the one that ties all the others together, is the return of your creative mind. At the old address, your ideas were sluggish, not because you lack imagination, but because imagination requires mental space, and mental space requires safety, and safety was something the old home stopped providing a long time ago. Your brain was so busy surviving, so busy managing the alarm signals and the energy drain and the fog we talked about earlier, that it could not spare any bandwidth for creativity. At the new home, that changes. And it changes faster than you expect. Ideas will come to you in the morning before you fully wake up. Solutions to problems you have been wrestling with for months will appear in the middle of a conversation, fully formed, as though they were waiting for a clear signal to arrive. You will start seeing connections between things that used to feel disconnected. Patterns will emerge. Insights will surface. And that feeling, that beautiful, electric, almost childlike feeling of, "Oh, I see it now," that is how it all fits together. That feeling will become a regular part of your life, because that is not just creativity, that is your gamma wave reactivating, your brain coming back online, your internal lighthouse cutting through the fog and illuminating the landscape of your future. And there is much more to say about that. But I will save it for what comes next, because what comes next will connect the dots in a way that I believe will stop you in your tracks. Now, I want to put these 5 qualities into a larger context, because the new home is not a random upgrade. It is not God saying, "You suffered enough, here is a reward." The new home is a seasonal shift. And seasonal shifts follow patterns that are as predictable as the turning of the earth. Every season has a beginning, a middle, and an end. The beginning is marked by disruption. Something breaks. Something shifts. Something changes without your permission. And for a long time, that disruption feels like destruction. But it is not destruction. It is the thaw. It is winter breaking so that spring can begin, and the middle of the season is marked by growth that is invisible to the naked eye. Underneath the soil, roots are spreading, connections are forming, infrastructure is being laid that you cannot see and cannot measure, and above the surface, nothing looks different. The landscape looks the same, the weather feels the same, and the temptation is to say, nothing is happening. But everything is happening. It is just happening underground. And the end of the season, the part you are approaching right now, is marked by emergence. What was buried breaks through the surface. What was invisible becomes visible. What was silent begins to speak. That is where you are, chosen one. Not at the beginning of the shift, not in the invisible middle. You are at the edge of emergence. The season is turning. And what has been growing underground for years is about to break through. I want you to see this through the eyes of Abraham, because there came a day, after all the walking, after all the uncertainty, after all the nights, sleeping under unfamiliar skies and waking up in a land he did not recognize, there came a day when Abraham arrived. And when he arrived, God said something to him that I believe God is saying to you right now. He said, "Lift up your eyes and look from where you are, north and south and east and west. All the land that you see, I will give to you and to your descendants forever." Notice what God did not say before Abraham arrived. He did not give him the panoramic view while he was still in his father's house. He did not unfold the map while Abraham was still packing. He waited until Abraham was standing on the new soil, breathing the new air, feeling the new ground underneath his feet. And then he said, "Now look, now see." Because you could not have seen this from where you were before. The old address did not have this view. And that is the truth about the new home. You cannot see the full scope of what God has prepared for you from the old address. It is not that you lack faith. It is not that you lack vision. It is that the view does not exist from where you used to stand. You have to arrive first, and then the panorama opens. And then there is Ruth. Ruth who left Moab with nothing but grief and loyalty. Ruth who followed Naomi to Bethlehem, not because she had a plan, but because she had a pull. Ruth who arrived at the new address and did the only thing she knew to do. She went to the fields to glean, to gather scraps, to survive. She did not go to Bethlehem looking for a husband. She did not go looking for a legacy. She went looking for grain. She went looking for the next meal. And she found Boaz, not in a palace, not at a banquet, in a field. While she was doing the humble, unglamorous day-to-day work of simply staying alive in a new place. And Boaz saw her, not because she was performing, not because she was trying to be noticed, but because her character, forged in the old home, was visible to the right eyes at the right time, in the right place. Ruth did not plan the meeting. She could not have, but she showed up. She was present, she was faithful to the small things, and God did the rest. And I believe the same principle applies to you. The gift waiting at your new home is not something you have to hunt down. It is not something you have to engineer or force or manifest. You just have to show up, present, faithful, open. And the right things, the right people, the right provision, they will find you. Not because you are lucky, but because you are finally standing in the right field. And this brings me to something I want to declare over you right now. Not at the end of the message, right now, because I believe you are ready to receive it. You are not just a chosen one. You are not just a pioneer, the one who goes first into unmarked territory. You are also a builder, the one who creates something lasting at the new address. The pioneer finds the land. The builder raises the walls. And what you are going to build at the new home will not be a temporary structure. It will be a legacy, something that outlasts you, something that other people will live inside, find shelter inside, long after you are gone. You have always felt this, the desire to create something that matters, something bigger than a paycheck, something that changes the shape of the world, even if only in a small corner of it. That desire was not ambition, it was architecture. It was the blueprint God placed inside you before you were born, waiting for the right soil to be built in. The old home could not hold what you are designed to build. The walls were too low. The foundation was too shallow. But the new home has room for all of it. And you are also a seer, the one who perceives what others miss. At the old address, your vision was clouded. The fog we talked about, the gamma depletion, the constant energy drain, it dimmed the very gift that makes you who you are. But at the new home, your sight returns, and not just normal sight, deep sight, the ability to look at a situation and see what is really happening underneath the surface. The ability to read a room, a relationship, a season, and know what is true even when everyone else is guessing. That gift was always in you. The old home just turned down the dial. The new home turns it back up. Now I want to be honest with you about something, because I promised from the beginning that I would not oversell what is ahead. The new home will not be perfect. It will not be a place where problems disappear and pain evaporates, and every day feels like a holiday. New homes need work. New homes have creaky floors and walls that need painting and rooms that need to be furnished with things you have not yet acquired. There will be days at the new address when you miss the old one. Days when the unfamiliar feels overwhelming. Days when you wonder if you made a mistake. You did not make a mistake. Discomfort at the new home is not the same as the stagnation at the old one. One is the discomfort of growth. The other was the discomfort of decay. And your spirit knows the difference, even when your mind does not. I also want to say this plainly. I do not know your specific new home. I do not know the city, the career, the relationship, the community, the exact address where God is placing you. That is between you and the one who is relocating you. What I know is the pattern. And the pattern says, the new home is real, it is ready, and it is closer than you think. Remember the GPS metaphor we have been tracking through this entire message? We started with recalculating, the old route disappearing, the screen going quiet, the silence that felt like abandonment, but was actually the most sophisticated guidance you have ever received. Then we moved to new route loaded. You could see the next turn, but not the final destination. And the challenge was to make the turn without seeing the end point. And now, chosen one, the GPS has entered its final phase, approaching destination. You know what this sounds like in a real car. The voice gets more frequent, the instructions get more specific. Turn right in 500 meters, your destination is on the left. And the feeling shifts from uncertainty to anticipation. From, am I going the right way, to, I can almost see it. That is where you are right now. Not at the beginning of the recalculation, not in the long stretch of unknown highway. You are in the final approach. The turns are getting shorter, the signs are getting clearer, and the feeling in your spirit, that mixture of nervousness and excitement that you cannot quite name, that is the feeling of proximity. You are close, chosen one, closer than you think, closer than your circumstances suggest, closer than the fog would have you believe. And there is one more thing about the new home that I have been waiting to share with you. Something that connects the gift waiting at your new address to something you have carried since childhood. Something that was active in you as a young child. Something so powerful that scientists have given it a name. And something that was slowly, systematically turned off as you grew up. And when you understand what it is, every single thing we have discussed, the stagnation, the fog, the creative shutdown, the inability to see clearly, will make total, complete, devastating sense. Stay with me, because what comes next changes everything. Before I reveal what I have been building toward, I want to give you something that will serve you for the rest of your life. Not just during this relocation, every relocation, every crossroads, every moment when the road splits and you have to choose which direction to walk, because the transit zone is full of decisions, and decisions made in fog lead to destinations you did not choose. So I want to clear the fog, at least partially, by giving you 3 principles that will act as a compass when your mind is too clouded to think straight. These are not rules, they are lenses. And when you hold a decision up to all 3, the right path becomes almost impossible to miss. The first principle is this: choose alignment over advantage. There will be options in front of you that look impressive, opportunities that pay more, doors that lead to bigger rooms, offers that would make other people jealous. And the temptation will be to take the one that looks the best on the outside. But impressive and aligned are not the same thing. An aligned opportunity might look smaller. It might pay less at the start. It might not photograph well for the people watching your life from the outside. But it fits. It fits who you are becoming, and where God is taking you. And over time, alignment always outperforms advantage. Always. Because advantage without alignment is a trap dressed in a suit. It looks professional, it sounds reasonable, and it will slowly, methodically steal years from your life that you will never get back. So, when the options appear, and they will, do not ask which one looks best. Ask which one fits. The answer might surprise you, and it might save you. The second principle is to let peace be your compass. I said this earlier, but it is worth saying again because it is that important. When you are standing between 2 options and your mind is spinning, stop thinking just for a moment. Stop analyzing the pros and cons. Stop calculating the risks. And instead, notice where the peace is. Not excitement. Excitement is loud and temporary. It spikes and crashes. Not relief. Relief is reactive. It tells you what you are escaping, not where you are heading. Peace. The quiet, steady, unmistakable knowing that says, "This is the one." Peace does not argue. It does not compete with other options. It does not need to be louder than the alternatives. It just sits in your chest, like a stone at the bottom of a river. Still, heavy, certain. If an option carries peace, even if it also carries fear, follow it. If an option carries excitement, but no peace, wait. Peace is God's signature on a decision. And when you learn to read that signature, you will never be lost again. And the third principle is what I call the 10-year question. When you are stuck between two paths, project yourself forward 10 years, not 5, not 1, 10. And ask yourself, which of these choices will still matter in a decade? The one that pays more right now might not matter in 10 years. The one that impresses people right now might not matter in 10 years. But the one that aligns with your calling, the one that moves you closer to the person you are becoming, the one that feeds the builder and the seer and the pioneer inside you, that one will matter. In 10 years, in 20, in 50. And here is why this question works. It strips away the noise of the present moment, the urgency, the pressure, the fear of missing out. And it reveals the one thing that actually matters, which is direction, not speed, not comfort. Direction. A slow step in the right direction will always outrun a sprint in the wrong one. Always. Hold on to these three principles. Chosen one. Alignment over advantage. Peace as compass. The 10-year question. They will not make every decision easy, but they will make every decision clear. And clarity in the transit zone is worth more than gold. Now, I have been building towards something throughout this entire message, and we have arrived at the moment where I can finally show it to you. I told you, back near the beginning, that scientists at Princeton discovered something remarkable about a specific brainwave. A brainwave called gamma, and I told you that this wave is directly connected to clarity, to intuition, to those breakthrough moments when the fog lifts and you see the path forward with absolute precision. I also told you that during prolonged stagnation, during the kind of environment the old home creates, gamma activity drops, the lighthouse dims, the mental fog rolls in, and the very capacity you need to navigate the biggest decisions of your life goes quiet at the exact moment you need it most. And I promised I would come back to this, so here I am. And what I am about to share with you is going to make your entire journey click into focus. Chosen one, you were not born average. You know that. You have always known that. Not because you are arrogant, but because you remember. You remember being a child, and the world made sense in a way it does not make sense anymore. You learned faster than the other kids. You felt things deeper. You saw patterns that adults around you missed entirely. Your intuition was sharp. Your creativity was effortless. Your mind worked like a machine that had no off switch, generating ideas and connections and solutions that came from somewhere you could not explain. And then, somewhere around the age of 7, something changed. It was not dramatic. It was not a single event. It was a slow fade. Like someone was turning down a dial inside your brain, one notch at a time, year after year, until the vibrant, electric, endlessly creative mind you were born with became something duller, quieter, heavier. Scientists have a name for this. They call it the decline effect. And what they discovered is that the specific brainwave responsible for all of those extraordinary abilities you had as a child, the gamma wave, begins to deactivate around the age of 7. not because of disease, not because of trauma, but because the systems and structures of modern life, the education system, the social conditioning, the relentless push toward conformity, they suppress gamma activity, slowly, systematically, without anyone noticing. And here is the part that connects directly to you, to your journey, to the relocation we have been discussing for hours now. You were not just born with gamma. You were born with more gamma than average. That is why you learned faster. That is why you felt deeper. That is why you have always sensed that you are different, that there is something inside you that the world has not yet seen, that the version of you walking around today is a fraction of the version you were designed to be. And because your gamma was higher than average, the decline effect hit you harder than it hits most people. The gap between who you were as a child and who you became as an adult is wider for you than it is for the average person. And that gap, that distance between the mind you were born with and the mind you are currently using, is the gap of gamma. That is why the old home felt so heavy, not just because the environment was wrong, but because your brain was literally operating at a fraction of its capacity. The fog, the indecision, the inability to see the next step clearly, all of it traces back to this one thing: gamma depletion. And I know what you might be thinking right now. You might be thinking, okay, but what am I supposed to do about it? I cannot go back to being 7 years old. I cannot undo decades of conditioning. I cannot just flip a switch and turn my brain back on. And you are right. You cannot undo it on your own. But a neuroscientist named Dr. Robert Lake spent 34 years of his career asking the same question you are asking right now. He studied gamma waves at some of the most prestigious research institutions on Earth, laboratories at MIT, Harvard, Stanford, Princeton, Berkeley. And what he found, after 3 decades of research, is that gamma can be reactivated, not through meditation, which takes months or years, and most people cannot sustain, not through biofeedback therapy, which costs $300 per session, not through expensive equipment that runs upward of $7,000 for a home setup. He found that the brain can be guided back into gamma activation through a specific technology called brain entrainment, a precisely engineered audio frequency that, when listened to through headphones, synchronizes your brainwaves with the gamma pattern, directly, efficiently. In 7 minutes, he took everything he learned across 34 years and compressed it into a single digital audio track called The Genius Song. 7 minutes, headphones, sit in a chair or lie in bed. And the technology does what meditation takes months to do. It speaks directly to your brain in the language your brain was designed to receive, and it reactivates the wave that has been dormant since you were a child. Now, I want to be honest with you, because that is what I promised from the beginning of this message. This is not magic. It is not a miracle pill. It will not solve all of your problems overnight or replace the hard work of the relocation we have been discussing. What it does is clear the fog. It restores the clarity. It gives your brain back the tool it needs to navigate the transit zone with precision instead of guesswork. And the results are not theoretical. Over 18,000 people have already used this. And the stories are not abstract. They are specific. Let me tell you about one of them. A man, 51 years old, who had been out of work for nearly 2 years. Not because he lacked skill, he had decades of experience. But something had changed inside him. He described it like this. He said, "I walk into an interview room and my mind goes blank. The words do not come. The sharpness is gone. I know I am intelligent, but my brain does not cooperate anymore." He had tried everything: resume coaching, practice interviews, confidence exercises. Nothing moved the needle. Because the problem was not his resume, the problem was not his preparation, the problem was the fog, the gamma fog. And then, almost as a last resort, he started the 7-minute ritual. Not because he was convinced it would work, but because, in his words, there was nothing left to lose. 11 days later, he received his first job offer in nearly 2 years, at a position better than the one he had lost. And when someone asked him what changed, he did not talk about his resume. He did not talk about his interview technique. He pointed to his head and said, "I did not change anything out here. I changed something in here." I know that some of you hearing this have tried things before. Meditation apps, sound healing, frequency playlists on streaming platforms. Things that promised to change your brain and your life and delivered nothing. And if that is you, I understand the hesitation. I understand the skepticism. You have earned that skepticism through disappointment. But I want to tell you clearly why those things did not work. And it is not because you did something wrong. It is because they were not doing the same thing. Meditation is a practice. It works over time, months, sometimes years, by gradually training your brain to shift its patterns. And most people cannot sustain the daily commitment long enough to see results. Sound healing and frequency playlists are not engineered to interact with your brainwaves. They are pleasant sounds. Some of them are relaxing, but they lack the specific brain entrainment technology that actually synchronizes neural activity at the gamma frequency. It is like the difference between listening to a song about running and actually running. One sounds like the other, but only one changes your body. What Dr. Lake built is different. It is not a meditation. It is not ambient noise. It is a precision-engineered audio track backed by peer-reviewed neuroscience from institutions that do not put their names on anything they have not verified. MIT does not endorse guesswork. Princeton does not fund hunches. And the EEG results, the actual measurements of brain activity before and after, are not opinions. They are data, repeatable, measurable, real, and 18,366 people have already experienced it before you. Now, let me walk you through something that I think matters. If you wanted to achieve this same gamma reactivation through traditional methods, here is what it would cost you. A single session of biofeedback therapy runs about $300. Most practitioners recommend at least 10 sessions, that is $3,000. And it requires you to drive to a clinic, sit in a chair with electrodes on your head, and repeat the process week after week. If you wanted to do it at home, the equipment alone costs upward of $7,000, and that does not include the training to use it properly. Meditation is free, technically, but the time investment is enormous. 30 to 60 minutes a day, consistently, for months, with no guarantee that you will reach the gamma threshold. Dr. Lake knew this, and he made a decision that I think says everything about his intentions. He could have priced the Genius song at $200, and it would still be a fraction of the alternatives. He could have sold it through clinics and charged a clinical rate. Instead, he set the standard price at $49. And then, for people who find it through messages like this, through communities of people who are actively on a journey of transformation, he reduced it further to $39. That is not available on Amazon. It is not available on Spotify. It is not available anywhere else. $39 delivered instantly to your email as a digital download, with 4 additional bonuses included at no extra cost. The first bonus is called Genius Child, an audio track designed specifically for young minds to protect and strengthen the gamma activity that the decline effect would otherwise suppress. The second is the original book that inspired the film The Secret, not the watered-down version, but the full source material focused on practical wealth principles. It sells for $20 on Amazon. It is included free. The third is a guided visualization that walks you through your ideal future in 4 areas: finances, love, health, and happiness. And the fourth is a printable infographic of the 5 most critical daily habits for creating lasting change. Something you can put on your wall and see every morning. All of that, the 7-minute gamma track, the 4 bonuses, the 34 years of neuroscience behind it, for $39. And here is the part that removes every last shred of risk. If you listen to it and feel nothing, if it does not shift your clarity, your focus, your sense of direction, you get every cent back. 100% money-back guarantee. No questions asked. No time limit on how long you use it before deciding. You are not risking $39. You are risking nothing. And I need to say this because it is important and it could save you real frustration. There are counterfeit versions of this circulating online. Websites that use the same name, the same branding, sometimes even the same images, but they are not the same product. They do not contain the brain entrainment technology. They are ordinary audio files dressed up to look like something they are not. And people who buy them feel nothing, not because the science is wrong, but because they received a counterfeit. The only way to access the authentic genius song with the real technology, the 4 bonuses, and the full money-back guarantee is through the link I have placed in the description below and in the pinned comment of this message. That is the only verified source. Do not search for it on Amazon, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere else. If it is not from that link, it is not real. If you feel called to explore this, if something in your spirit says this might be part of the equipment God is providing for your relocation, the link is there. It is for you. Not as a pressure, not as an obligation, as a tool designed for people exactly like you, people whose gamma was once extraordinarily high and who are ready to reactivate it as they step into the most important season of their lives. And every day that gamma stays dormant is another day you navigate the transit zone with foggy vision. Another day of decisions made through a cloud. Another day of standing at the border of the new home, able to sense it but unable to see it clearly. The person you are becoming at the new home, the builder, the seer, the pioneer, they have already made this decision, not because they were certain, but because they understood that the right moment does not feel perfect. It just feels right. Whether you explore that or not, what matters most is what comes next, because the most powerful part of this entire message is still ahead. Everything we have walked through, the old home, the transit, the signs, the obstacle, the vision of the new, the fog and the clearing, all of it has been building toward a single moment. The moment where you stop hearing about who you are becoming and start declaring it. The moment where the identity of the new home is not something I describe to you, but something you speak over yourself with your own voice and your own conviction. That moment is next, and I want you to be ready for it, because what I am about to walk you through is not theory. It is not teaching, it is transformation. The kind that happens not when you learn something new, but when you claim something that has always been true. The new home is not ahead of you, chosen one. You are standing at the front door, and the handle is already in your hand. I want to begin with gratitude, because nothing that matters in this life starts without it. God, source of all things, author of every season, architect of every relocation, I thank you. I thank you for the old home, for every lesson it taught and every scar it left that became a teacher. I thank you for the walls that held this person when they could not hold themselves, for the floors that caught their tears at 2 in the morning when no one else was awake, for the rooms that witnessed their formation, even when the formation felt like it would break them. I thank you for the people who were placed at the old address, for the ones who stayed and the ones who left, for the ones who loved imperfectly and the ones who taught through absence. Every connection, every collision, every conversation, it was all part of the design. And nothing, not a single moment, was wasted. I thank you for the courage this person carried through seasons that offered no applause, for the mornings they showed up when showing up felt impossible, for the nights they chose faith over fear when fear was the only thing that made sense. You saw every one of those moments, and they mattered. And now I want to acknowledge something that does not get spoken over enough. God, you see this person, not the version the world sees, not the mask, not the resume, not the social media highlight, not the performance they learned to give at the old address to survive another day. You see the real one. You see the weight they carried when no one else knew it existed. You see the questions they held in the dark, the ones they were too afraid to ask out loud, questions like, did you forget about me? Am I still part of the plan? Was there a mistake? Is the new home even real, or is it just something I imagined to survive the old one? You heard every one of those questions, and your answer was not words. Your answer was this moment, this message, this relocation that has been unfolding with a precision that no human hand could engineer. You see their faithfulness in the small things, the moments no one clapped for. The promises they kept when breaking them would have been easier. The integrity they maintained when the old home was crumbling around them, and no one would have blamed them for cutting corners. You see all of it, and it matters. And now, chosen one, it is time to release. I want you to hear each of these declarations and let them pass through you like a wave, carrying out what no longer belongs. Release the old address and everything it represented, not with anger, with gratitude and finality. It served you, and it is done. Release the identity that only made sense in the old environment, the peacekeeper, the strong one, the invisible one, the one who kept everyone else comfortable at the cost of their own becoming. That role is complete. Set it down. Release the fear that the new home is not real. It is real. It has been real since before you were born, and the fact that you cannot see it fully yet does not make it less real. It makes it faith. And faith has always been enough. Release the guilt of leaving people behind. Your departure is not abandonment. It is an invitation. When they see you standing in the new home, they will find the courage to seek their own. Release the timeline you thought God should follow. His clock does not match yours, and his delays are not denials. They are precision. They are timing so exact that it requires patience you did not know you had. Release the need to see the full picture before you move. Abraham did not see Canaan from his father's house. Ruth did not see Boaz from Moab. Joseph did not see the palace from the pit. They moved first. They saw second. And so will you. Release comparison to others who seem settled. Their journey is not your journey. Their home is not your home. And their timeline is not your measuring stick. Release the belief that you do not deserve a new home. You do. Not because you earned it. Because it was prepared for you by someone who does not make mistakes. Release the comfort of familiar suffering. The old pain was at least predictable. The new, unknown is not. But predictable suffering is still suffering, and you were not built for that. And release the old frequency that kept you anchored. The fog, the heaviness, the dim signal that told you the world was muted and gray. That frequency does not live at the new address, and you do not have to carry it there. Now hear this. I activate the fullness of who you are, not the fraction the old home allowed, the fullness. I activate the pioneer in you. Let the trail making begin. Let the courage that carried you through the transit zone now carry you into territory that has never been walked. You go first. And the road you build will be used by hundreds who are watching and waiting for proof that the journey is real. I activate the builder in you. Let the hands that held everything together at the old address now build something brand new, something lasting, something with deep foundations and high ceilings and room for every dream that was too big for the old walls. I activate the bridge in you. Let the connections begin. Let separated people find each other through your presence. Let divided communities discover common ground because you stood in the middle and refused to choose sides. I activate the seer in you. Let the fog clear. Let the vision return. Let the deep sight that was dimmed by the old environment come roaring back to full strength. You will see what others cannot, and what you see will change everything around you. I activate the deliverer in you. Let stagnation break wherever you set foot. Let your arrival at the new address be the catalyst that moves mountains that have not moved in years. Where you go, things shift. That is not coincidence. That is calling. And I activate the right connections, the right provision, the right doors at the new address. Let what was held back now be released. Let what was delayed now arrive. Let the gift that has been waiting in the new home begin to unwrap itself, layer by layer, in perfect timing. And now I speak protection over this relocation. I cover this transition from self-sabotage. The old patterns will try to follow you to the new address. The old voice will try to reclaim the space. The old fear will try to convince you to unpack the suitcase you already set down at the border, and I speak against all of it, not with aggression, with authority. The authority of someone who has walked too far to turn back now. I guard what is being built at the new home from premature exposure. The new season is tender, the new identity is fresh, and there are people who will not understand what you are building until it is finished. Do not show them the blueprint. Show them the building. Protect the early stages. Let the foundation set before you open the doors. And I guard this person's heart during the transition. Let no bitterness from the old home poison the soil of the new one. Let no grief become a chain. Let no disappointment become a wall. Let the heart remain soft and open and ready to receive everything the new season is bringing. And now, this is the declaration, the peak, the highest point of everything we have walked through together. And I want you to receive this not as words on a screen or sounds in your ears, but as truth being planted in the deepest part of your being. I am being relocated by the hand of God, not by circumstance, not by coincidence, not by failure, by the deliberate, intentional, unstoppable hand of the one who builds homes for his chosen ones. I am leaving the old with gratitude and arriving at the new with expectation. I do not drag the past into the future. I honor it, I release it, and I walk forward with my hands open and my heart ready. I am the one whose gift is waiting at the new home, not someone else. Not the person who seems more qualified or more prepared or more spiritual. Me. The gift has my name on it, and the new home was built with my measurements. I am the pioneer. I go first. I build roads where there are none. I am the builder. What I create will outlast me. I am the bridge. What I connect will heal what was divided. I am the seer. What I perceive will guide what others miss. I am the deliverer. Where I arrive, stagnation breaks and movement begins. My new home is ready. It has been ready. And I am ready for it. I do not wait for permission. I do not wait for perfection. I do not wait for the fear to disappear. I move in the presence of fear, and the fear bows as I pass. The relocation is not coming. The relocation is here. The door is open. The light is pouring through, and I am walking in. It is done. The relocation is sealed. The old home releases you with blessing. The new home receives you with open doors. What was spoken over you in this moment is not fragile. It is foundation. And it will hold everything you are about to build on top of it. And so it is. Amen. One more thing before you go. I did not plan to say this, but I feel it strongly right now, and I have learned to trust that feeling. The person you were when you first pressed play on this message is not the same person hearing this sentence right now. Something shifted. You might not have the words for it yet, but something moved. Not tomorrow, not later. During this message, the relocation did not begin when I started speaking. It began when you decided to stay. When you made the choice, conscious or not, to keep listening even when the truth got heavy. That decision was your first step into the new home, and you have been walking ever since. You are not the same chosen one. The GPS has recalculated. The new route is loaded, and you are already further along than you think. If you feel this relocation happening in your life right now, if any part of this message spoke to something real inside you, I want to invite you to do something. In the comments below, type the words, "New Home." Just those two words. Let that be your first declaration at the new address. Not for me, not for anyone watching, for you, as a marker, a timestamp. The moment you stopped living at the old address and officially stepped across the border. And if you want to explore the 7-minute gamma activation we discussed, the tool developed by Dr. Robert Lake to help clear the fog and restore the clarity your brain was born with, the link is in the description and in the pinned comment below this message. Only if you feel called. It is there for the person who is ready. And one last thing. If there is someone in your life who is also being relocated right now, someone standing between the old and the new, someone who needs to hear what you just heard, send them this message. Not as a suggestion, as an act of love, because you know what the transit zone feels like. You know what the fog feels like. You know what it is like to stand at the border wondering if the new home is real. And if you can spare someone even one day of that loneliness by sharing what helped you, that is not just generosity. That is the deliverer in you already at work. Go in peace, chosen one. Your new home is not a hope. It is a place, a real place, with real walls and real doors, and a real gift sitting on the table waiting for you to unwrap it. You have been seen. You have been known. You have been guided every step of the way, even the steps that felt like stumbling. The old home did its work. The transit zone refined your faith. And the new home is open. Walk forward. Do not look back. The road behind you is grateful for the footprints you left. And the road ahead is waiting for the weight of your feet. Until we meet again, carry the names you were given today. Pioneer, builder, bridge, seer, deliverer. They are not wishes. They are truths, and they belong to you. Now go. Your new home is ready. And it has been ready for a very long time.